a human trying to recreate what like nature does is very sloppy. Like if you look from it from the way, like, yes, it seems to be efficient, but it's also like very sloppy because nature had a billion years, and it's on capacity because those plants have through evolution like maxed it out, right? But what's frustrating to us humans is like we can scale it like we can scale everything else in nature. But I almost think you have to twist how you look into this. Like humans love things to be a technical problem rather than like, you know, like the nature's problem. Yeah. And nature is a technical problem. Like nature has processes, like a plant grows in certain like phases. A plant can be optimized when planted in a certain strategy, and like there can be data derived from planting as well. Totally. It's just a bit harder, but it would be so much better if we would engineer for measuring what is already out there, but it's harder to do. But that's the challenge, because if you measure like the soil composition to the plant growth rates, and we have that as a dial as we love it available, and suddenly it would be the most epic thing to do.
Hey, what is good, ReFi fam? John here, dropping an episode with Niklas Terrahe of Ivy Protocol. In today's show, we unpack the voluntary carbon market, its challenges and limitations, as well as some of the key opportunities that today, this particular era faces in evolving an environmental asset market that can realign nature with the economy. We look at Ivy's new Co-pilot that is an integrated LLM that has large amounts of carbon market data that allows project developers and buyers to make sense of an increasingly complex asset class. This episode really unfolds the complexity of this space and the necessity to create solutions that work together with other organizations and can scale confidence and trust to deploy capital in the timeframes that are required. We have a chance to dig under the hood of Niklas' journey and the insights that he's gained along his way. He's a successful founder, selling his previous business, Null, with his other co-founders and starting Ivy Protocol, making a massive contribution to this seemingly endless web of complicated issues that the environmental asset market faces. Hope you enjoy the show. Drop us a 5-star review if you get a chance. It means so much to us, and let us know what you think. Hey, what's going on, Niklas? How you doing, brother?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Mate, I'm super excited to dive into the work you guys are doing at Ivy Protocol. Obviously, the recent announcement of Co-pilot and some of the work you've been doing with OpenAI and Toucan is incredibly exciting. But I feel like it'd be really fun to start with you. You know, who you are, your entrepreneurial journey, and yeah, give a little bit of a context to how you got into Ivy and the problems you guys are trying to solve.
Yes, would love to. Actually started very traditional finance. So I started in like private banking. Always wanted to, when I was like 15, I had this like phase where I was like, I want to become an investment banker. Don't know where that come from. There was no influence in my family.
I want all the money.
Yeah, but like I was really obsessed. I was like, I had no idea what it means. But like I grew up in a town near Frankfurt, Germany, and in my town happened to be like a very wealthy German family, the Quandt family. And I was like, okay, like they must know how to deal with money. Then I called them with like 15 years old, and they were like, yeah, I want to have an internship. I want to learn more about it. And I think like some cute bonuses. And they were like, yeah, come have an internship. So I skipped out of school for like one month, have like an internship. Not that I really gave them any benefits, but like I learned a lot and kept contact with them when I turned 18. I signed my first contract to work for them and like product marketing. And then I had like maybe a quarter crisis where I was like, well, what am I doing here? These super rich families, making them richer. And I really wanted to, I was annoyed by the hierarchies and like the oldness, just old white man energy. I hope my boss not listening to this album.
He'd agree with you.
But yeah, I really just wanted to go into tech and like go into something that is more meaningful. It was the beginning of my career, was only turned 19 back then. And I was like, I want to really like just do something that makes a lot of sense in this time of my life. I can do like other things when I'm like older. And I was like, okay, like climate seems to be the space where to be in. I got accepted to a university called Code University in Berlin. It's a very tech-focused entrepreneurial university. We always say it's an accelerator program with a bachelor degree.
Nice.
And then I started to explore climate tech, firstly through like the German Startup Association, like the official association, and helped to grow their green tech department, and looked into a bunch of different sectors like food, mobility, and then stumbled across the voluntary carbon market, which is like, wow, a mechanism to like value nature. And like, you know, like it was very early back then. I mean, early in terms of like the big hype that we just got now. And then out of university, because the university was very like open startup, we experimented with some websites around carbon offsetting. And we landed a very good niche with carbon offsetting for employees as company benefit.
That's a super interesting idea.
And that was our first company. It turned then from a university project into a company called Null.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. We did for 1 year sharp. We pumped in it. We grew quite quickly. It was a very niche product, but it was a good timing in terms of a lot of corporates were exploring sustainability, but they didn't know what exactly they want with it. And engaging the employees was a very easy, not big commitment step. So that's how we got to that startup. But then, we felt a bit stuck within this product. It was hard to branch out. We wanted to do carbon accounting, not a very good product market fit.
Sure.
And we sold that company, this product, to an American HR company. They're still running it.
It's so cool, man. So you sold your first company a year after you built it.
Well, I mean, it was us from university campus. We never hired anyone except us because it was fully software. But it was also our first touch point with what is this market? What is going wrong with it? We were whenever someone finds out how we buy carbon credits, we're gonna be fucked.
No way. I was wondering the same thing.
It was back then we were we calling a project developer. It's hey, so we want to buy 5,000 credits. And they're yeah, I send you an invoice. They send us an invoice, and then we paid that invoice, and then we sent another invoice to our clients, and they paid that invoice. Sure. And then they were just crossing something out of an Excel, 5,000 euros minus, and then we 2 months later got a link to a retirement where it was just a bundled retirement, and they said you guys are in this retirement. And it's this can't be it. There's so much eyeballs in this space, and that's how we then after exiting got deeper and understood more the infrastructure, and then really felt we have to start from the layer one infrastructure, and that's where we are right now.
That's so nice. Yeah. So what was that sort of epiphany moment, and how would you kind of define that infrastructure? Because this is obviously what's led to Ivy Protocol.
Well, I think my re-spark, I was almost let off a little bit by the voluntary car market when we exited. But then you launched this amazing long article, which today everyone who has ever applied for us has to read and tell us their thoughts about it. And then this whole new angle, and also the way that you from a high level describe what this mechanism, which I think was early on was my inspiration, the mechanism of the voluntary car market. Yeah. Came up again and was oh my God, we have to be in this space. We have to now is the time. And that was definitely a pivotal moment.
Wow, what an honor, man.
And yes, so we started more from a crypto angle. We moved away a little bit from it, just to the outside, as we think it currently creates a little bit of barriers still for what we want to do. But long term, the vision that you wrote down there, I think will hopefully come true.
Wow. Dude, that's so cool. And big shout out to Anna Watson from Toucan, because she took my sprawlings and made it something digestible that people could actually read. But it was such a fun season, as the first wave of ReFi was really kicking off. There were literally hundreds of founders coming into the space, looking at a broken legacy system that had enormous potential and almost feels inevitable in some capacity, just in terms of, the ways that we have to finance and protect nature. I'd be curious how you describe what is Ivy Protocol, both in its current form and maybe a little bit of future casting to somebody who doesn't really know what you guys are working on.
Yes, I think in the current form it is, the easiest way to describe it is the angel list of the carbon markets. Just because we kind of built the back end system for any early stage funding. This comes with also reporting and other management systems, but for now it's a heavy focus on the funding part of a project development cycle. Yeah. I wouldn't like to describe Ivy forever like this. We want to evolve into, we say on the website, the operating system. So build out our functions and feature that a project developer who works with data, who upsells reporting, cap table management can log into and manage all their stakeholders. Yeah. For now, it's more funding focused, slowly branching out. And in the future, we really want to become this data layer where we can, on the one hand, give trust to buyers by giving them deep insights into performance that we just don't have right now because these data points are trapped in Excels and PDFs. And in the very far future, let's see, when we speak in 5 years, whether that came true, we could even tap into something like methodology development, certification, just because of the data density that we hopefully have by then.
Yeah, super cool. So I'd love to step back and just look at the carbon market as a whole and create a little bit of context for the problems you guys are solving. Could you just give us a kind of 10,000 foot view of your understanding of the carbon markets and maybe touch both on the voluntary side and the compliance, just so that folks listening can kind of get a layer zero?
Sure. I would say it's very easy. We have all the corporates in the world made very publicly committed climate goals, 2030, 2040, 2050 net zero. 80% of this will be hopefully done through their own efforts. And also by the push and pull of the compliance market that will like tighten the amount of emissions that these corporates are allowed to emit.
Yeah.
But then there's 20% left, which is impossible even in 10 years to be able to reduce to zero. Think about shipping companies; they just can't, buy an electric ship container company.
Yeah.
And this has to be reduced as well.
Yeah.
And this is where we have to somehow remove CO2 from the atmosphere. And I think that's what the voluntary carbon market is. And ultimately, it's a mechanism how to measure with a strong focus on the carbon side. Currently, we're branching out to other scope benefits, but it's always came from the carbon side because that's like kind of what simplifies this whole like climate problem. How to measure that quantified impact from certain technologies. And this can be trees, which have done it for a billion years, but this also can be direct air capturing, other technologies that just reduce CO2 from the atmosphere. We need that mix. I think the voluntary carbon market should never aim to be more than the 20%. The less, the better. But the more effective, the better as well.
Yeah, it's a really interesting framing, looking at the kind of pressures of the compliance market, pushing this towards decarbonization and ensuring that there is integrity with, hey, we've got to do everything we possibly can, and then we can offset the rest that are the super hard to abate emissions. And recognizing both engineered and nature-based solutions have to play a role in this, and really looking towards the nature side for, I guess what it is the integrity of the promises that these projects are making to corporates to say, yes, we're doing this work and these are the outcomes that are being fulfilled. I'd be curious to get your take on the criticisms of the voluntary carbon market over the last 12, 18 months. There's been a lot of bad press and scrutiny, some of which came by surprise to some people, I think. And then also really narrowing in on the nature-based solutions and your thought in terms of how they're currently administered today and maybe, what's missing from the puzzle to actually make this work.
Yes, I'm very mixed about this press. I think obviously, so I see the voluntary carbon market for 25 years, it was like an NGO-led market. No one cared about them. It was like this niche NGO-ish plays. And then 6 years ago, all the eyeballs went on it. All young tech founders and stuff would rushed into it with a very old infrastructure mindset, very little money to also make things right in the beginning because it was this almost borderline philanthropy, and now it became something that is more very away from philanthropy, where it's incorporated into strategy from companies and has budgets. And now eyeballs coming onto this and it's well, let's look behind the curtains, what is actually happening. And I think it's very good that we had a big scandal in the beginning of the year with Red Plus, which helped to clear out a little bit. But what I'm missing is what I'm very frustrated about is the time of bounce back. Yeah. It happened at the beginning of the year. We had a lot of press, big discussion about it, and now we have to take that with an upright energy and to make it even better. And I think. Yeah. It's time, right? We don't have that much time, so I'm a bit frustrated by how slow there are still players who are picking this information up now, recycling it again 6 months later, and then other people have not read this and come on, we passed this, we now learn from it, and we have amazing opportunities to move on.
Yeah, but there's also, to me, a lacking kind of nuance in the narrative to say, yes, some of these instruments are flawed, and we need to improve the way that we, issue these credits, we monitor, verify. There's this whole spectrum of improvements that can be made. But we have to recognize that we need nature in order to survive and thrive on the planet. And I think some of my initial observations, there seems to be a lot of capital moving into engineered removals, and nature is kind of getting this shirk because it's harder to measure. Yeah. And what a sad outcome it would be if in our kind of drive for scientific reductionism and measure everything, quantify everything, we actually lose nature in the process. Yeah. Because we could end up with a stable climate, but actually a completely depravaged biosphere. So I'd be curious how you guys have leaned very specifically into mangroves and blue carbon as opposed to everything else that was out there in the market.
Mm-hmm. No, very good question. I fully understand where this this urge to go into technical removal comes from.
Yeah.
You can literally look on the dial and see how much CO2 you reduce. It feels like if I quadruple the unit sizes, I know exactly what's coming out. And then when you look into nature, it is more complex. It's seasonal. It's you can't scale up. You can't tell the plant to grow quicker. But it's so much more fine-tuned in terms of efficiency. It's like a human trying to recreate what nature does is very sloppy. If you look from it from the way yes, it seems to be efficient, but it's also very sloppy because nature had billion years to perfection it, that process. And it's on capacity because those plants have through evolution maxed it out, right? But what's frustrating to us humans is we can scale it we can scale everything else in nature. But I almost think you have to twist how you look into this. Humans love things to be a technical problem rather than the nature's problem.
Yeah.
And nature is a technical problem. Nature has processes. A plant grows in certain phases. A plant can be optimized when planted in a certain strategy, and there can be data derived from planting as well.
Totally.
It's just a bit harder. It's harder. But it would be so much better if we would engineer for measuring what is already out there, but it's harder to do. So I almost think it's a bit lazy to say, well, nature's hard to measure. We do it technical. It is hard to measure, but that's the challenge. Because if you measure it, imagine what we can do with it. Imagine the control over, not control, but the information about our biosphere we have. Yeah. If we could measure the soil composition to the plant growth rates, and we have that as a dial as we love it available, and suddenly it would be the most epic thing to do. And what we picked blue carbon is, firstly, blue carbon, the methodology was developed in a time where there was one scandal, and they made very sure that blue carbon is more on the conservative side. Anything mangrove is more on the conservative side when it comes to measurement and baseline calculation. So some people would argue that mangroves are actually 5 times better in sequestering CO2 than it's currently stated with the certification. Wow. But I'm happy with this because I love to have a bit of buffer if something comes out.
100%.
And the second thing, it has so many co-benefits, flood protection. 90% of all fish grow up in mangroves. So I think it's a very great within the nature space to start and build trust. And we just saw Apple announcing in their yearly event where they announced the iPhone to speak about a minute how they sequester, and blue carbon is their strategy.
Yes, I love this. This gave me so much hope.
It's so great
because big tech coming behind nature.
Microsoft being direct caption here, and Apple Apple always did their own thing. And Apple is always a bit more wise, right? Yeah.
Let's be honest.
It's true. There's no Apple flip phone yet because, I don't know, Apple doesn't believe in it.
Yeah, it's because it looks dumb.
Yeah, it looks,
Yeah, totally. I think the co-benefits part is really interesting because it also, I think, illuminates, this challenge with carbon tunnel vision, which I feel is a byproduct of this industrialized mindset of the world. Yeah. That everything needs to be broken down and mechanized and put into a process and a flow diagram that can be, finitely measured and controlled. Right. But if we look at this mindset, this is actually a lot of what's gotten us into this challenge in the first place.
Yeah.
And so, super interested of you guys applying this very kind of strong data-driven, engineering measurement-led mindset, but to the challenge of, restoring mangroves all over the world. Yeah. So maybe drop us in a little bit to, the current cycle for a project getting started, a mangrove restoration project. Mm-hmm. And I'd be just curious to just lay out a overall timeline, and then we can look at what are the key problem areas that you guys identified, and how did you arrive at this kind of insight around collaborative data infrastructure as the key enabler for scaling the market?
Yes, very good question. I think if you look at the project development cycle of a mangrove project, you can very simplify it by 2 big cornerstones for a project. The one is feasibility. As the name says, you look whether it's even feasible to start a project. You have a rough idea of how much CO2 this project could sequester. You have some ideas about the land rights, and you have some ideas and like about the business plan and so on. But nothing is yet really like, it's just like a rough construct. Getting to this point is already insane. Like, it's not accessible to everyone, just like smashing out a baseline calculation. So it costs anywhere from like 20 to 50,000 euros if you want to do it yourself, or you're a big project developer like a South Pole who has that internally and can do it. So there's a high entrance barrier to get to this point.
Yeah.
And also what we researched is that most funding needed is also at that point. And then if you have the baseline, you go over to what we call PDD, the project design document. That's the project, that's a document that will also get you to certification that investors look on. But the issue is that everything from day one to day now, even if it's done very well, is in PDFs and like written text. And like, there's some sort of structure, but also sometimes not really. But I think the beauty about it, we all work towards one certificate. So there is kind of like a guideline what you have to do. So
the end state of where all the data needs to funnel into.
Exactly. So a project developer, like when we work with them, they usually have like pre-feasibility. So one of the things that we offer is like them getting initial, we call it technical assistant investment to get to the pre-feasibility. That can be between like 20 and 50K, whatever is needed to get them to feasibility. And that is split by multiple investors. So like, let's say like everyone can put in a 2K check, and all they get from this is right of first refusal if the project gets green light. But this is something that a lot of investors are very interested in, because 2K, firstly, is like within this like handbrake mentality market, it's easier to approve. There's almost a little bit of FOMO built up as well, because it takes a month to do this pre-feasibility, this feasibility. And then they have a certain amount of time where they can place their big order, which is then up to like 30 million, sometimes more.
Wow.
And they know it's exclusive for them. So it's actually a mechanism that we have spent a lot of time
really interesting.
Like putting into place. And then there's another thing, and this is something that like I think differentiates us quite a lot. We looked at the process and we're like, okay, this is insane. Like we first we saw like, oh yeah, satellite here, LiDAR there, and then it's all automated, and boom, you have the carbon credits. That's the dream.
One day.
The reality is different, right? Like the reality is like someone, like a big auditor once told me, looking at the PDD of a project is like judging a startup by its pitch deck. And I was like, oh, fair point. Well, well, like there's some truth within this.
Wow, interesting.
So what our core belief in Ivy is like, we don't want to like reinvent any technology right now that is too early. Like I think it's a timing issue in the carbon markets right now. We want to bring the stakeholders together that are currently doing this. It's happening every month that projects get certified. We want to bring them on one platform. And let them work on the platforms. At least we have the data more structured. Like firstly, speak to everyone. What do you need for your work? What do you need for your work? And what do you need for your work? And then, okay, you guys talk about the same thing. Let's call it also the same thing, like label it. And then make that process more efficient. We learn from it. And then we will see opportunities. Okay, this actually can be automated by a satellite. And then we allow for it. But I think our approach is very different to others, where they're like, okay, we have to like automate the entire process like already, because it sounds sexy. Whereas we are more, this is why I always say angelists, where you bring in people to the deal flow to look over at a lawyer or like someone else, because that's a reality. But I think what allows us this in this current market that we have is to build the momentum of critical people that have to be on our platform to do this, to then have the foundational data layer. Because we have now a way higher density. If we onboard a project, we know so much more about the project than the marketplace, for example. And I think within this, there is the value. And within, at one point, also like looking at the data, performance reporting, and selling this or like giving this information to investors to get more confidence on this asset class. That's kind of like within these lines is the truth right now, in my opinion, to scale this market.
Super interesting play. So let me just recap a little bit what I understood. So right now, the current process of getting a carbon project certified and actually issuing the credits is super slow, and the data is all kind of stuck into static documents that can actually be read by machines. And you can't use this data to make informed decisions. You can't search through it. It's not indexed. It's just this big pile of content, basically, that people have to sift through. And that actually most projects are just getting stuck at the earliest stage. So you've implemented initially a solution that allows for financing to be kind of broken up amongst other parties, purely for people to just get that first right of exclusive access to credits if the project does get green lighted. So that's kind of like the first intervention. But then on the back end, you're really accumulating all the data from all of these different actors into a single place and starting to structure it, right? So you can take meaningful insights from it. And I guess this sort of structured large data set is probably, one of the hinge points that made this work with OpenAI and building, I guess, I don't know if it's a private LLM or how you guys frame it, but is this where the sort of opportunity for plugging LLMs into the system came from, or was there another aha moment?
So to be super honest, this was not on our roadmap.
Yeah.
When we first started, it was we have to figure out how we very well onboard the data, structure the data.
Yeah.
And the timing was beautiful. From all the non-good timings of the voluntary car market, LLMs came just in the right time, right?
Yes, AI
it came just
the
in the right time. Because what we were looking at is Excels and PDFs, sweet spot for LLMs. That's what they love the most. Written text, beautiful. So we already started, it started with us, obviously using existing AI to help structure stuff. And we're well, why has no one built any LLM for the car markets yet?
Yeah, totally.
And they were okay, hold on, engineers, stop what you're doing right now. Let's just crank out the first large or one of the first largest LLMs in the car market. So we start to fed existing project document, which is luckily publicly available because it has to be in the Vera registry.
Yeah, yeah.
And trained it on it. And we today launched to our waiting list the first kind of beta. It's trained on thousands of documents from Vera registry across standards, not just Mangroves, everything. And it's trained on and what we hope it will allow us to do is a few things. For us specifically, currently it's independent product that you can just use, play around with. Looks like ChatGPT, literally looks exactly like it. You can ask questions, you can help you structure the project document feasibility. Later on, this is what we call a co-pilot. It will be sitting and we have to figure out the UI UX, but maybe it looks a bit like Grammarly in our onboarding process, and it's kind of helping you to already from day one structure the data, right? And very, very accurate example, trying to figure out how big your buffer security pool is, and you can pull up data from the past 25 years of similar projects that had a similar project pool. Or you say I have a Mexican project, and then you can pull up four other Mexican projects that have similar soil compositions and stuff, and it's brilliant in this. Obviously we have to train right now. We only worked on it for 3 months, so it's a matter of training. It's a pure matter of training. It's not a technical issue. And what we hope with this is the ground vision. Let's see how fast we get there. Yeah. Because we use GPT-4, and this works in almost all languages. Yes. That we can give a shrimp farmer from Myanmar this tool within the native language has to and very simple questions we can help them to write these complicated things, asking them, how big is your land? Just telling them the number. Where are the coordinates? Telling us the numbers. And in the back end, we can it's coastal line Mexico. This means there are VM33 mangrove restoration projects. Planting season starts in October. You have to buy 1 native species and 3 endangered species. Here are the links, right? That's the kind of the end vision to democratize that.
So cool, man.
Something we were very surprised about, we thought this is the ultimate project developer thing. We had 50-50 in terms of demand side and project developer side.
Oh, interesting.
So a lot of demand side people came actually big corporates as well. Yeah. And we're well, this helps us in due diligence with these projects, and never crossed our mind, to be fully honest. It should have crossed our mind. But we have a similar amount of demand from buyers who are well, now I can see whether this is actually a legit buffer pool when I look at the documents.
Because you just query it, you just ask.
Exactly.
What are the comparables? Interesting.
Yes, and that's kind of how it forms right now. We're still very careful in saying and also communicating on what shape it will take on, because we're just learning right now a lot from questions. And another very good insight is also a large project developer came to us, one of the top 3 largest project developers in the world came to us, and they submitted in their application. We love to use it for just checking if we don't do it right. If you do our project development documents right and cross-check things as well, even though obviously they know how to do it. But yeah, that's kind of the learnings that we got. And I hope, I think the timing comes just right. And going back to this engineered carbon removal.
Yeah.
This is something very easy. You don't need an AI for that. Like easy, obviously not easy, but like you need an AI for something as complex as nature, where there's like every ounce of like nitrogen has an effect on the whole ecosystem. And the more you train an AI on this, the more smarter it becomes on all the side effects. My dream is also to feed it more data on like studies of studying very specific ecosystems from bachelor thesis to masters. Like, I'm not sure if that will help, but like,
Sure.
I could see there's some untapped wisdom in this to really accurately come closer to a very measurable nature and kind of compete with a technical removal as well.
So interesting. It reminds me quite a bit of what Digital Gaia is working on, this kind of network of AI co-pilots where they're building a large land model that encompasses all of the world's agriculture data, in effect, which gives this intelligence around what's working in the soil, all over the world. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting to see, you guys starting with text input, but you could imagine, now you can drop images into ChatGPT and use images as prompts, seeing this really extend to be a very comprehensive tool set that can answer quite a large range of questions and perform a significant number of functions. I'm curious just to hear a little bit more around like how you guys built this out, because I know you also partnered with Toucan. You also had somebody at OpenAI working with you. What was the process like? You mentioned a little bit of the data that you fed it, but I'm just curious to go just a little bit of a layer deeper, because you guys referenced Toucan specifically as like one of the largest, most structured data sets of the voluntary carbon market to date. And I'm just thinking like, okay, what role do these different systems play in this? Because obviously Toucan's database is on chain.
Yeah. No, brilliant question. Like we actually started without Toucan in the beginning, and then we had a casual chat, and Toucan was telling us like they have made a massive effort of like building up a massive database of certain data points, and we're like, wow, this is amazing. Like this can save some time, because if anyone ever wants to go on their website and click around, it's the worst user experience.
I was just wondering how long it's taking you guys to access all these PDFs.
Toucan, they have had more struggle with this.
Wow.
I don't know if it's built on bamboo servers, but like there's registries the slowest one in the world. So that's actually one of the limiting factors. But Toucan was helpful with this, and we're still incorporating a lot of, because it's only very young that we started this. So it's still like ongoing, like how, because they have a lot of data available. My big dream is of course also have that data on chain, because that will be the foundational layer for any tokenization as well. If we have like very comprehensive data about certain things on chain. That's also why it's interesting with Toucan. I don't want to, because we already deep down now, like we went down the rabbit hole right now in this. Adding this layer of complexity to a lot of people is a bit too much at this point. Yeah. We can nerd about it, but like for our simplicity, we have not Toucan too strong, because it was just, people are like, oh yeah, I hear AI, I hear crypto, and they're like zoomed out, like this guy's just buzzing. But I strongly believe in it as well. At one point, having this on chain, Filecoin, wherever. That's kind of like...
Yeah, I'd be curious to get your kind of broader take on the role of AI in the carbon market alongside the role of Web3, because you've said, very succinctly that people just kind of discount it as they hear the buzzword. Yeah. But what do you think, kind of just as an architecture play, how does this play out kind of over the next cycle? Because the whole market is effectively being redesigned at various parts and various capacities. So yeah, just curious to get your sense on how these different tech play a role in the future of this market.
So the AI I see as like helping us to deal with the complexity of the asset class, right? Like we're speaking about like nature's impact outcomes, which couldn't be more complex in terms of measurement. And like an AI, I think, can be very helpful, as you said, to take in like a bunch of data sources into account, which humans, like brains, will never be able to process it. And I mean, we see how rapid it evolves, and will help us to understand things we don't even understand, and like make connections that we have never made connection, right? Like the more data you feed, it will cross-reference, like, oh, we have this master, there's a master thesis on the bee health in West California, and that correlates potentially with like a project there. I don't know. I've not trained it, but like I think this is what like AI can be very helpful in, especially because of the complexity of this asset class. Yeah. For us, it's also like a tool like a lot of other industries are currently incorporating. We don't call it like AI; we just call it Co-pilot for now. Yeah. It is an LLM. We will find it in next year in every product anyway. Sure. The same way we see it as well. We don't say like this is like we have an AI product now. It's a Co-pilot that is built on LLM. Crypto I mean, crypto gets me the most excited. Like, especially what you predicted for it. I think this is the wet dream of everyone in this industry. If we find the mechanism that we not only like, first we have to stable the asset class. People believe in it and don't count on a philanthropy, but like actually as an quantified impact, so it can be working with our economic system. And then if we on top of this build a layer of currency, well, then we cracked it. Then we hopefully will never had in the history of humanity to needing 2 Earths worth of resources. Because the mechanisms align. I do think it needs a bit of time though. I do think what you said is my inspiration. It's what gets me up every day, and my north star for why I still stick into this absolutely messy market at the moment. But the exact steps in our roadmap, at least, is not yet crypto. At least not in the front end, because it's such a sensitive topic. And speaking with clients, we just get sent to different departments, and it just creates friction. And crypto was never a thing built to be at the forefront in terms of like saying it out loud. It was a like technology, or like blockchain was a technology that works in the back end.
Yeah, I think that's a really pragmatic take. And for you guys to be pushing forward in this market and gathering these stakeholders together, putting the data in a way that can be structured and understood, and just creating a tool that helps people make sense of the complexity of this market is such a valuable contribution. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see how the markets evolve, because it feels as though you have kind of the shifting sands of the standards trying to look at how do we deal with all of this new tech. And it's evolving so quickly. I really don't know how they can possibly keep up. Like we can't keep up, and we're in it every day. You know, and you have these older institutions with, you know, many years of history and doing great work in this space, trying to look at a really complex design space across the board. And so I think, you know, the major milestone for me is seeing the gold standard pilot with the 5, you know, projects that they onboarded go live, and see to what extent is, you know, tokenization of legacy credits accepted by the market. But it feels as though behind the scenes there's a kind of a second wave of digital native asset issuance that's happening. And you look at Regen Network, you look at Gainforest isn't right now issuing the assets, but they have a very comprehensive DMRV protocol. You look at D-Climate Cyclops. You're kind of seeing the second wave, and I'm curious how you see these two markets sort of working together, because it feels like there's people who've said, we'll play the existing market game. We'll work with the legacy institutions, we'll work with corporates, and we'll kind of incrementally improve this space. And there's people who've just said, like, we're not willing to wait for, you know, these legacy institutions. We're just going to push straight beyond it. You know, open methodologies, you know, full audit trail. Like you look at, you know, Hedera's Guardian, for example. What is your take on these two different movements and how they kind of work together and serve one another towards, you know, ultimately financing?
I love that question. You would expect for me to like say, because I'm also in the startup space, that I have a strong belief that like the next wave of young startups will shift it. I'm careful though, because like what if you look at the history of the voluntary car market, what led us to scandals was the things that went very quick and very like you know, like what we have as startup mentality is like build things and break things fast.
That's not the mentality we need for financing.
But like at the same time, right? Like this is where I'm deeply conflicted, because I need to break things fast, because, you know, like we don't have endless funding or like government funding and stuff like so. I'm deeply conflicted about me wanting to do everything right and like making it perfect, because we are at a very, very sensitive topic. When it comes to climate, you just get bombarded if you do things wrong. And I know that if I run too quickly, or like if others run too quickly and break things, I just use one example. I don't think they're doing anything wrong, but like that would be so. Like, let's say Silvera is a VC-backed startup. If they should happen to run too quickly, and Silvera now would run to a scandal, and I'm very sure that Silvera won't run to a scandal.
As an example,
as an example, this market will be thrown again 3 years back. So that's why I'm a bit careful. Is like it's a full-on like skill of like how far can we push, like what is testing out the maximums without like testing out too much to be thrown back here again.
Totally.
That's kind of like how I see it, and I think something I what I want more people to do is like work like Goldson, like work with them, also like listen to some of those that they say, because they have like, they're not stupid. They have some things in place that have worked, that have certified things before. Listen to that carefully and fascinate them from what you do. Like get them hooked. Like let them read your paper that you wrote back then. Like don't get them with like, like we have to move things. Like you have to be quicker. Like this methodology is shit. Like where's the transparency? Because they hear that all the time. Like gold standard, like they're so desensitized to any criticism, because they get criticism from climate activists, from corporates, from us, from all the time.
They're trying to help us stabilize our climate, everybody.
And before it was popular as well. So I think, like some of my learnings is like, just get them excited. Like take them out, take someone out to dinner from Gold Standard or like from Vera. And tell them the vision, show them how it works. Show them what it's not yet working, make them feel they're very, very much needed in this process. But in specific areas where like they won't break you down, like they won't like put you, like make you slower. That's kind of like the approach that I like to do.
Nice, man.
So I don't like the protocols that you just named. I heard good things about them, and I'm very excited what they build. And I don't know if they do this or not doing this, but this is like how I like to look at it.
Totally, man. And as you're talking, it kind of makes me think about how nature works in many ways with seasons and the cyclical aspect of life, where we have kind of these slower, older institutions that are moving at a different timeline because they have more capital at risk, and that risk tolerance needs to be lower because of everything that's at stake. And then you have these smaller organisms that can do much faster rotations, and we really need to see a very clear kind of knowledge sharing culture between these different types of institutions who are all working towards the same goal. And I think my hope would be that we can start to shift into a more kind of holistic and collaborative space that isn't so heavily segmented, and also invite journalists to some of these conversations to really understand these are really good people who are, dedicating their entire life to solving the most complex crisis of our time that affects all of us. And they're actually doing stuff. Whereas on the other side of the equation, there's loads of corporates and people and organizations all over the world that aren't doing shit for the climate. Like, go laser them. We really have to hold the boundary around the integrity of a movement of climate conscious founders, entrepreneurs, investors, regulators who are pushing towards a better future. And I think that's where, the kind of sense of community in Web3 can really go a long way in this broader environmental movement to kind of break down the barriers of this sort of professional, fragility and stagnancy. And so I'm super optimistic about this space. I think it's going through an upheaval. And I think you guys in particular, making the contributions you have, offer an enormous promise for this wave. But there's a lot of uphill battles. And I don't know if there's anything in particular that comes to mind for you of like, if I could just wave a magic wand and get one specific change in the market or get one specific person to do this to really unlock this next stage of evolution. Just curious, what would come up for you?
That's a really good question. Like, one thing I would love to see, also like for the haters, we talked about the AI. Like, just because we have an AI now doesn't mean that the data the AI is working with is true. So like, we need also like some more like DMRV stuff. So if someone like finds a very cool this is possible. I know I'm too deep into this to like be like if someone find the DMRV that does it all, which is not happening. But that would be something that will like do a lot, but it's also like something that's currently very unprofitable and like really like a VC case, which is this like whole spiral of like problem. But that's if someone like figures this out, amazing. If someone if a big buyer, let's say like a BlackRock is like, I'm going to step into this, and they don't even need to buy much, but like so many people look up to this. Like what Apple did, that was brilliant. That would have been something if you would have asked me in the beginning of the year. I want Apple to speak in their like iPhone release about buying carbon credits from nature.
Yes, like, come on.
So that was brilliant. And we saw people like coming back to us, like, you were the blue carbon people. Like we saw Apple doing this. And another thing, because always like everything seems to be so amazing. So other founders as well, like, I don't think it's a secret that like it's a hot space right now. It's insanely tough. It's like sometimes for some people, like before you even get to tell what you'd build, you have to defend the entire market. And I don't know, hopefully a few people building in the space listen to this. You just gotta power through this. Like, and don't power through them by getting defensive Or like prove them right, get them excited, like get them in the same words that you got me excited about this market. Tell them, zoom out a little bit again if they're stuck into some like some small happenings. Like let them see the big one again. Like this is a mechanism that allows us to align nature with our economic system. There's a way to get it right, and then get back to it. But I do think it's freaking hard right now.
Yeah.
Like not. I mean, everywhere in startup world, but multi-car market, and if you have a stronger like blockchain element, it's probably even a little bit harder, and it's bad vibes. So get a therapist.
Yes, I've got one.
And I think then we're gonna like power through this as well. It's too big to like imagine. Also, like because I just said like big motivations. Imagine you have your last breath. You look back to alive, and you're one of those people who build it in this decade, the mechanism that allows us to align nature with the economic system. The Earth will exist for another 10 billion years. Hopefully you build something that will have an impact as long there is life on Earth. And never make whatever superior species pops up to extend the limits of resources. And that's what like keeps me pushing and pounding, even if it's like a bad season.
Man, what a vision. It's so moving. And I feel like this isn't the vision that a lot of people hold. And I think we suffer from a lack of long-term perspective. But really that is what we're talking about, is aligning nature with our economy and therefore human life with nature. And it seems like we've built this massive machine out of curiosity in some ways. You know, humans just want to build stuff. Like it's part of our nature. And in the process, through its design and probably lack of consideration, lack of knowledge, it has a fatal flaw. It's that it's growing infinitely and in the process destroying everything that we need to survive.
Yeah.
Water, soil, air, you know, the living beings upon which our life depends. And now we're at this critical tipping point with, you know, pretty severe geopolitical instability, rising temperatures, record extremes, record floods. Like,
it's not a great place out there right
it's
now.
everywhere. And yet, like, what other path do we have other than figuring out how to make the system work for the people who are on the front lines, who are, you know, really facing the realities of climate change on a daily basis? Because we're not yet. Yeah. It's coming. Yeah. It's coming. But most of the developed world who's caused this problem aren't really suffering from this crisis yet. But we're starting to feel it. And I think my hope is that in the process of this unfolding of the consequences of the decisions we've made as developed nations and the systems we've built, that we can also start not only to have compassion for nature, but also for other people and for ourselves. Because it feels like, you know, right now there's just so many excuses to hate, so many excuses to divide. And it's with that view, I'd love to, towards the end of the session here, look at kind of your own inner journey and how you've managed, you know, you've built 2 startups. How old are you?
I'm 23.
You're 23. Wild. Sorry, guys. I was not doing what you were doing at 23. I was building startups, but not like this. How are you finding it as a founder? What's it been like for you?
Well, taking into consideration that I'm like, probably still at the beginning, I also don't want to like just drop any wisdom, because like I think wisdom comes with experience and time as well. So I have a little bit of time that I have spent yet, so I can derive a little bit of wisdom from that. But like I wouldn't say like I cracked the code yet.
No, of
for
course,
myself,
man.
I also like struggle with a lot of things where like I try to find balance of like something in me tells me like, yeah, Niklas, you're young, you just should push and like work over hours. Other parts of me is like, no, you should keep the balance. Like you have to watch out for yourself as well.
Yeah.
So something I'm still working out. And I don't know, for me, I'm like, I just need a big vision. Like you gave me that big vision back then. So like you're part of this. Like
amazing,
I read this piece so many times, and so many times like it was getting me back up. So I'm an incredible vision driven person. I need to really balance like energy flow. Like I need to make sure that like, if I was compared with like the Dunning-Kruger curve, right? Like I need to make sure that I stay in terms of motivation up there in the Dunning-Kruger curve and don't get all the way down, because I need the energy from the big vision up there, and like not knowing too much. Sometimes it sounds toxic, but sometimes I don't read stuff through because I know I will get too deep down. And I sometimes need the energy, so I'm like ignorant to some things to just push through. And I think this is my version of running through walls and like I'm still figuring this. Maybe I will fall because I use this mechanism for myself, but I really need like energy, motivation, high level visions to then wake up and like write code or something like that.
That's beautiful. Can you unpack the curve in the model briefly that you described?
Well, this is something that is not scientifically proven. It's just something that like I did by learning, doing. But like, because I'm a very like motivation driven person, like I need to make sure, like Dunning-Kruger curve, for people who don't know, like at the beginning, if you start a new topic, you get this like excitement. Oh my God, I got it. Like I understand it. Like, like this is amazing. This is probably like my strongest curve I had when I wrote your paper. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then you're at the peak, and then you suddenly like figure things out. Like then you look into like how complex the ecosystem of blockchain and crypto is and how much like fragmented and like insane to get through. Like you drop, and then you get another like you go into the Voluntary car market, and like the mechanism that you understood how it works is amazing, but then you see how like what fraud is. Like you see some core things that you don't understand how to change them. Like that end, for me, this is like aligning nature, like quantifying nature for a long time, even further down. And for me, it's very important to sometimes be ignorant and stay up there, right? Like, don't, if I read your paper, don't click on all the hyperlinks that you give me to not head into like a deep zone of like, oh my God, where am I in? To keep pushing through. Sometimes I need the energy, but some people can also just like sit down and crank out accounting without like just getting it done. And I'm a bit different to this. So for me, I follow like the energy of like motivation. So I have to, single thing I do in a day, I have to connect back to something bigger, even accounting.
Dude, that's a secret to life, man. It's a mastery.
That's why I'm like experimenting with like literally sometimes avoiding going deep into stuff. Obviously you can't always do this, but like sometimes I feel like, okay, for example, the Red Plus thing, I know what it's about. I know the Guardians article. Have I read everything in it? No,
you don't need to.
I avoided it. Others will have done it, but for me it was very important to stay motivated.
BJ Fogg talks about motivation acting as a wave, and hearing how you have been managing your own motivation and ensuring that you have this high level of vision to carry you forward is super interesting. And it's given me a spark, like it's so beautiful seeing this expression through your life and your work. And just how you show up. And it seems like you guys have a really cool team dynamic as well.
I love the team.
Between you and your co-founders and the other folks on board. And you guys have built something really meaningful in a short amount of time. And man, like I feel like this is the crux of the entrepreneurial journey in this space. It's just finding what is your unique instrument, doing your best to make a contribution that fits into the broader space, because you can't solve all of it. You can only really make a dent. But in doing so, alongside a bunch of other brilliant people, we're shaping and chiseling this massive sculpture into something that, can survive for generations to come. And I think for me, I've definitely found myself, I think just disappointed and frustrated with some of the space as a whole. And like, ReFi is bolted onto the broader Web3 movement, which is full of so much, motivation towards, I would say, pointless outcomes in many ways. And, I wasn't really bothered by the kind of frauds and the scandals of like the broader Web3 space, but it does create a bit of a cloud. And so it's beautiful to hear how you're, making sure you're staying at that highest level, pushing towards this vision of a better future and aligning nature with the economy. And man, I'm excited to see you guys grow, and like how cool that you're now here in Lisbon. Like what an amazing journey. And I don't know if you wanted to share a little bit around the dynamic with your co-founders or not, but it seems like you guys have such a badass team.
Yeah, I love the team. Also, like if someone made it to this part of the podcast and has some very good mechanisms to deal with motivation, some high level things, like maybe drop it wherever this podcast is being posted in the comments. So like some frameworks and how you go through like cloudy times. I would love to read more on this. Like I have not fully figured this out.
Yeah, totally.
Also like some spiritual stuff. Like it's still something open area for myself to figure out. Like anchors and things like that. Like it's currently something I want to figure out. The team, I'm really happy with. Like I can't say anything like negative. Like I went to university with Gilad. He's even younger than me. We went and started like this university journey. Liam, like I also met through university. So it's always been like, it started from like friends building stuff, and it's now been such a long time. So we exactly know what each of us does and what is not doing. And like were fortunate enough to get good mentors as well to help us to like separate things, because like I spent very much time with these people. Like I go partying with them and I build things with them. And I think it's a
great combination.
Yeah, like I was happy and fortunate to have like mentors right in time that sort of like do feedback mechanisms, like tell each other what did not work well, like what you did not like, how did you feel about things. And we also had some like of our first hires that brought in more vulnerability. So we have like every Wednesday we have like a cute little like vulnerability session in the morning.
Nice.
We do like breath meditations or like a lot of people feel comfortable with, like it doesn't even need to be this. Like sometimes we had employees sharing about wombats or
whatever
ayahuasca.
it is.
Like it's everything, and that's really like I really enjoyed it because so much time spent with this team. I'm happy that this is like something that like is a bright place to be right now.
Man, super bullish on what you guys are doing. And for others listening who want to get involved, how can they get in touch? And what's one thing that people can do to support you on your journey?
Well, reach out to me on LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever. I'm probably better at LinkedIn, I'm a bit more active right there. I don't know, like I just love speaking with other builders as well, like about stuff, what they're seeing. Like if anyone has like a grand new thing that we have not heard yet, I'm always curious to I just love hearing new angles, completely new angles to it. So if anyone like has a cool new idea and I can help to connect to right people, I would also love that. I just need inspiration. Like I'm fueling on like inspiration, passion and stuff. So like if anyone is else passionate and thinks they have something, they found a twist to something, please share with me. Keep it confidential, but I will obviously love to help.
Awesome.
And yeah, I mean, what are other startups looking for, we're looking for as well. So yeah.
Mate, well, thanks so much for coming on today. We'll drop your Twitter and LinkedIn in the show notes, and hopefully get some people pinging you and some connections being built to this. But yeah, Niklas, it's been an honor, brother. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much. It's like full circle. Like you brought me into this, and now after like a bit more than a year, I'm here talking to you in person.
That's amazing.
Really exciting. Thank you for also like so many people like getting into this journey. It's exciting. It's so much fun.
Man, it's an honor, brother. On we go. It's a long journey ahead.
Yes.
Let's do it. See you, bud. Thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the show. I would be so incredibly grateful if you could leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen to your podcast. This helps us reach more listeners, attract amazing guests, and ultimately get the story of regeneration out to a wider audience. It takes just a couple seconds and makes a massive difference. Thanks so much. And do let us know if there's any guests that you'd love to hear from. We'd be very grateful to hear from you. Thanks.